All right, everybody, welcome back to week 16 of the Other Side Sports Show. I am Josh Powers, joined by John Emmons, Matthew Binkley. Gentlemen, how you doing today? Let's find Tuesday
Great.
night.
It's wonderful.
Beautiful night. Ready to hopefully get some debates going.
Get some debates going. So first thing on our agenda for the night is we're gonna talk top 5 running backs in the NFL. And so when we did this top 5 thing last week, we did we started at 5 and then we kind of just went up and that kind of thing. So I figured this week, instead of doing that, we'll give one person will give their top 5. We'll give the other 2 a chance to respond to that, and then we'll move on, and the next person can give their top 5. So since this was my idea, I'll be the fodder on this one. So I'll start with my top 5 running backs. Number 1, I have Le'Veon Bell. Number 2, I have David Johnson. Number 3, I have Todd Gurley. Number 4, I have Ezekiel Elliott. And number 5, I have LaShawn McCoy. Those are my top 5.
I can't really disagree with any of them. I only have one different one. I guess I'll just run down my list real quick since I only have one different guy. Le'Veon Bell 1, David Johnson 2, Todd Gurley 3, Zeke 4. I got Alvin Kamara coming in at 5.
Okay, so before Matthew goes, why do you have Alvin Kamara, can I ask?
I just feel like what he brings now to that Saints offense. It was tough me putting him up there because he's obviously not going to be a guy who's going to take 80% of the carries or whatnot with Mark Ingram there, but I think the talent to me is clear for him. Receiving the ball, running the ball. I think just really the eye test is what really made me do at number 5. I was thinking about LaShawn McCoy. I was also thinking about Jordan Howard.
I believe, you said you brought up, what he brings to the team as far as receiving. If I'm not mistaken, LaShawn McCoy led the Bills in receptions this year, and possibly receiving yards as well. So I get that he is the only weapon on that offense.
Well, that's my point. Is I think LaShawn McCoy is way more important in the Bills' offense in that facet. But Matthew's face is over there. Alvin Kamara, to me, when I look at the eye test, he's just more talented, in my opinion.
Especially when you look at this year coming up. McCoy is at that age that he's on a downward slope now for running backs.
I think he still rushed for over 1,000 yards last season, though.
Yes, he did.
He didn't really slow down, though.
No, I'm saying he's at that point where I think you're going to look at Kamara's going to go up and McCoy's going to go down. I think this year you'll start to see that a little bit more. I do like the Kamara pick, actually. I have 1, David Johnson, 2, Le'Veon Bell. I'll explain why I have those flip-flopped, by the way, in just a sec. I have Zeke at 3, Gurley at 4, and Fournette at 5. I have DJ and Le'Veon switched for Le'Veon is more of a scat back, and I think DJ is just that stereotypical, you're just going to give him the ball and just feed him kind of guy. That's why I kind of have them flipped. Gurley, I'm looking at stats right here. He had 1,300 yards rushing last year with 13 touchdowns. He had 788 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. Gurley had a quietly good year, really good year last year. That's 2,000 yards.
Whoa, what was quiet about his year?
The fact that
he was in the MVP discussion.
I'm referring to. I don't think John had him on his list.
Yeah, he did.
He was at number 3. We
have
the same top 4 as Josh.
You have him lower ranked than the 2 of us do.
No, I thought that he didn't have him.
Oh, okay.
No,
the only reason I don't have him higher is because I think Le'Veon Bell and David Johnson are on their own level, and then it's Todd Gurley.
I completely agree with that. I thought you didn't have him on there. I was like,
oh no, I'm not that crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think our the top 5, 6 are pretty consistent.
So I'm really curious about your Leonard Fournette inclusion.
I did the honorable mention last week. I did put Leonard Fournette in my as like a player to watch kind of thing for me.
I have an honorable mention, and I'll talk about him in a minute. But
I had Kamara at 6. I had them kind of flip flopped with John basically because I think this. If you look at him just pure talent wise, he's a beast.
It's another kind of eye test kind of thing.
My
for Fournette with
problem,
me.
my problem with Fournette is that every running back that we talked about up to this point, even if you flop Kamara and McCoy, they're all dual threats. Fournette cannot catch the football.
I agree.
I don't have a problem with that though. I don't think that takes him out of the equation though. I think he's going to beat the crap out of you, and if he stays healthy, he's going to just wear down defenses. And that's what you want.
I can see it. I guess because you know more about your own team than most people do. Because on Sunday, John's watching the Lions, you're watching the Patriots, I'm watching the Jags. So we see.
I can't watch the Patriots.
God
I
bless
watch
my
the Jags.
soul.
What's that?
We get the Jags games here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I hooked you up with a website where you're gonna be able to watch Patriots games now. So.
Yeah, you did.
But anyway, but if you the thing I don't like about Fournette, and it was something that the Dolphins complained about with Jay Ajayi, was he always looks for that home run play, and he doesn't just look to take the 2 or 3 yards. Fournette, multiple times, if you go back and actually watch tape of him, he tried to get too fancy and spin out of tackles, and make try to make too much of something when our offense really excelled. When we were getting Blake Bortles in 3rd and 5 situations, if he would have just taken those 2 to 3 yards on first down, put us in that 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, I think our offense would have been better than it actually was this year, even though it was still a top 10 offense, I believe. So until he learns to kind of take his 2 to 3 yards on some carries, and the home runs will come instead of trying to hit a home run on every play, he's not going to be top 5 for me personally.
I mean, I can see that. I think that you have a home run threat there. I think a lot of these running backs in the league, outside of the ones we're talking about, they're not that kind of threat. But I see what you're saying, though. I understand it.
So I have an honorable mention, not as somebody that I would consider a top 7 running back, even top 8 at this point. But if he has another season like he did this previous season, I think he could start jumping into that top 5 conversation, and that's Alex Collins from the Ravens. Alex Collins didn't even really get a chance to become an impact player on the field all the time until their 4th game into the season, and I believe he finished top 6 or 7 in rushing yards to end the year. So he missed games and was still in the top echelon of rushing yards. So and I believe he had one of the highest yards per carry rating, floating right there around 5, higher than Bell, higher than Kamara, higher than Ingram, all those guys. So his numbers were actually really impressive for a guy that you wouldn't think would come from, especially out of Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting. Go ahead, Matthew.
I'd be curious to see how that plays out though when they've fixed the offense, because I mean sometimes you see guys put up numbers like that in a really crappy offense just because there's nothing else.
That's why I said I'm gonna need to see it again. Yeah. I'm gonna need to see it again. But.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting person to put on and watch though, because I mean he did kind of open some eyes last year. Like Josh said, he missed some games and still finished top 6 in rushing, so it's definitely impressive.
Yeah, I don't know the hard numbers on that, but when I was looking today, his name came up because he was up there near the top.
I think another guy that I kind of mentioned that there's 2 guys that I think about, not for top 5, but Jordan Howard I did debate, but a guy like Derrick Henry is an interesting guy to talk about.
And he's another one of those ones that he has the potential to be top 5,
right?
But he hasn't really gotten the chance,
right?
And,
I want to see some more from him, and
yeah.
But then they also brought in Deion Lewis now, so they're still going to have that dual committee kind of thing going.
But
so that kind of hurts them.
I think Deion is going to be more like a 3rd down receiving type.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of Derrick.
No, I agree. I'm just saying that committee.
Yeah, he's not going to. Yeah, he's not going to be a 3 down back. He probably never will be in his career. So,
which could help him stay longer.
Right. It could help his longevity. Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to wide receivers. I don't think this one will be as tough until we get down into maybe that 5th guy. I said on the show last week I wasn't going to have Julio Jones in my top 5, and then I looked at the receivers list and I was like, okay, Julio has to be in the top 5. So for my number 1, I have Antonio Brown. Number 2, I have DeAndre Hopkins. Number 3, I have Odell Beckham Jr. Number 4, I have Julio Jones. And then this is the one where I figured it would kind of come out of left field and surprise you guys. Number 5, I have Marvin Jones from the Detroit Lions, wide receiver.
I love you.
As my number 5.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes, Sean.
Yeah, I didn't know I could fall in love with this man even more than I already was. So here we go.
Before you go, let me give you my reasoning why I picked Marvin Jones. One of the huge things that I liked about watching Marvin Jones was he was up there in the top, 10, 15 in receiving yards, which is important, obviously, because that's their position, that's their job. He had I want to say 8-ish touchdowns somewhere in that area.
He really came on towards the end of the year too.
The big thing for him was his yards after catch and his yards after contact. I think he led the league in yards after catch and yards after first contact. He was huge on that front for Detroit. So picking up first downs on short passes because he'd miss break tackles and stuff like that. That's huge for a receiver, and his playmaking ability in that asset, in that aspect with the ball in his hands, I feel is really important, and that's why I have him number 5.
And another thing you have with Marvin too is Stafford for the last couple of years. Obviously, his most trusted guy was Golden Tate, right? I mean, and then Marvin really came on this year, and you saw Stafford go to Marvin more once he started playing better and better. And some of the catches he made last year were ridiculous. I don't know if I'm ready to put him in the top 5 yet. He's definitely a receiver worth talking about for me, but I love Marvin Jones, so I'm not going to be upset with you putting him there in the top 5. For me, I got Antonio Brown 1, OBJ 2, D-Hop 3, Julio 4, and then I put it's a pretty boring 5. AJ Green at 5. I think he's, besides his meltdown last year versus Jalen Ramsey, I think he's just, I think it proves, I mean, it's pretty obvious with him to me. I mean, he goes out and does everything for that team, even though the Cincinnati Bengals are bad. But I debated a guy like Michael Thomas a little bit, but I want to see some more from him still. But he was definitely up there in my mind.
Well, I think I kind of went off a little left field. You're going to probably have a field day with this.
Oh, boy.
Well, we got Edelman, Chris Hogan.
No. I have number 1, Antonio Brown. I think we can all agree on that. Number 2, I have Larry Fitzgerald. Number 3, I have OBJ. And I'll explain why I have him at number 2 in just a second. I have OBJ at 3. I have DeAndre Hopkins at 4. I think, AB, OBJ, and D-Hop are all kind of consistent on. But at number 5, I have Tyreek Hill. In today's NFL, you want a guy like Tyreek Hill is going to blow the top off, and kind of just make the defense think. And I think that he does that really well. And he's going to open up a lot of stuff there in Kansas City again. Larry Fitzgerald, listen, there's no receiver outside of Antonio Brown I would want to have on my team than Larry Fitzgerald. I don't care how old he is. He just finds a way to when you look at a receiver, the best receiver is going to be a guy who's going to save your quarterback, right? Can we all agree that your best receiver is somebody who's going to save the quarterback in a bad situation?
Yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald still does that. And you talk about the quarterbacks that have come and gone in Arizona, he makes them look good. He had his hands, his route running, everything is what you look for in a receiver outside of that off the top speed. But I mean, if I want a receiver on my team, I'm going to have Fitz.
I don't think my issue with this is him being in the top 5. I think my issue with it is having him ahead of a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, or even an OBJ, given OBJ's little personality, his little interesting personality. But I just think that talent-wise, as of right now, I think those guys are just better than him as a wide receiver right now. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald is a surefire Hall of Famer, but
I could see I could see you saying D-Hop has better skills than him as an overall skill set in terms of the speed and everything. I don't think OBJ does though. I think OBJ is still, he has a couple of things he does really well, but he's not that overall guy who's gonna you're not gonna throw it to him in the middle of the field with 2 safeties there.
Who was your number 5? Who was your number 5 again?
Tyreek Hill.
Okay. So I I did have 3, but I agree with Larry Fitz that he is an excellent receiver. So I can agree with him being in the top 5, but I don't agree with it being at 2. Primarily because I went back and forth with D-Hop and Antonio Brown as who was number 1. Because D-Hop he scored more touchdowns. He was more explosive, and you can say he had less weapons on his team than Antonio Brown did with Martavis Bryant, Jesse James, Juju Smith-Schuster, Le'Veon Bell, like all those guys. But D-Hop did it with Tom Savage and Deshaun Watson, and he still performed. So I think D-Hop is for sure like a surefire top 2. I'm okay with Larry Fitz above OBJ if we're gonna make that argument. Actually,
and sometimes, it's one of those things where I don't get to watch as many Texans games as just when I watch them. Sometimes I don't see him there. If that makes sense. So I get the numbers and I even get the skill set thing. It's just one of those things where eyeball test.
Yeah. I don't think any of us can really say Larry Fitz doesn't deserve to be in the top 5.
And then the last problem I have with your top 5 is Tyreek Hill.
I agree with that. I'm with Josh.
I debated putting Tyreek Hill in, and then I looked at kind of his stats and his numbers comparatively. He's boom or bust. Like he's either 170 yards a game because he gets 2 huge catches, or he's 4 catches for 12 yards. Like he's boom or bust.
But Julio has been the same way lately.
I mean, Julio was number 2 in receiving yards this year. Like he didn't have the touchdowns Julio's never really been a red zone threat, and he should be.
Which baffles me. Yeah, it baffles
me. Should be. But Julio's consistently top 3 in receiving yards.
I think Tyreek Hill is a specialist that you'd want on your team. I mean, his speed and his athleticism is, second to none. But to put him over some guys that are, I think, well deservingly to be in the top 5 is kind of to me, I guess. Like Josh said, he's kind of boom or bust. I'm going to want a guy who's consistently putting up his numbers.
I think numbers-wise, Tyreek Hill is up there in, your top 7, 8. But talent-wise, like skill-wise to the wide receiver position, I think his speed hides a lot of that.
I think the boom or bust thing's pretty big, too.
There's nothing wrong with his speed hiding that because that's who he is and that's how the Chiefs use him, and they use him intelligently. And I don't have a problem with him being used like that. More power to him if it gives him more money, whatever, makes him productive, whatever. But I don't think skill-wise he's a top 5 guy.
But see, here's the thing, though, and this is what I was trying to say. Your argument was that he's hit or miss, and so it doesn't matter what his total numbers are at the end of the day. Julio last year, a 54-yard game, 24-yard game, 57-yard game, 30-yard game.
I think the talent with Julio is – I think the talent with Julio, when you watch the actual film and actual wide receiver fundamentals, I think it's clear on who's a better wide receiver.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying that he disappears too. He had a
Josh, he also brought up Tyreek Hill as a skill standpoint, a wide receiver.
No, I understand that. I'm talking about the game by game thing because 253 yards against Tampa Bay inflated.
With my thing with Julio though is we've seen Julio and what he's capable of doing, and his wide receiver skill tree. I think
he just with him is he disappears.
No, I agree, but you can say the same thing with Tyreek Hill.
I understand.
But if you want to break them down and you look at just numbers, but then you look at the film on who's a better receiver, it's Julio.
Well, I'm talking about blowing the top off the defense because that's what killed.
You can have other guys in the NFL that blow the tops off the defense, though.
But they don't. You only have a very few amount of guys who can do that. I'm just saying. I think.
I don't think he's top 5 worthy. I thought about it, but.
Okay, so I have Tyreek Hill up here. Okay, he had a 43-yard game, a 35-yard game, a 34-yard, a 38-yard, a 41-yard. He only went over 100 yards 4 times.
But that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was just reading off to you about Julio, though. That's what I'm saying. If you're looking at game-by-game yardage and the amount of times they disappear, they're the same guy. Now, I understand the skill set argument, John. I get that. I'm saying if you're looking at the game-by-game disappearing thing, they're both in that same realm.
For me, I agree with the boom or bust thing. My thing with Julio and Tyreek is with the boom or bust is at least with Julio, it goes back to my skill set argument.
Mhm.
And that's why I put him ahead of Tyreek because of the skills that I know of. I can agree that Julio disappears almost just as much as Reek.
And I can see the skill set argument. I understand that, but the disappearing thing, they're the same guy.
I will concede that when I was looking at this and I was making this list, I was like, man, I want to put this guy in here. Man, I want to put this guy in here. But like, there weren't enough spots with 5 spots.
Right.
A guy that I really wanted to include was Adam Thielen in Minnesota.
Yeah, me and you talked about that a little bit before the show.
He had such a great year, and his numbers, like his touchdown numbers, won't reflect that because he only had 4, and Julio had 3, and everybody says Julio's not a red zone threat, but his numbers and like his performance on the field, he's always where you need him to be. Like he's really good. Stephon Diggs, also on that Vikings team, really good.
Yep.
And they help each other out a lot.
They do. They do.
You can't cover both.
Right.
Then I mentioned that you got Kyle Rudolph to worry about too. That offense.
And Dalvin Cook's coming back, but John mentioned AJ Green. I wanted to put AJ Green up there somewhere. Then you have you said Larry Fitzgerald. I looked at Larry. I wanted to put Larry up there.
Yep.
You
even got guys. Like guys like me and
Keenan Allen, we had talked about. Keenan Allen, I wanted to put up there. There's a lot of receivers out there.
Even a Mike Evans type guy. I mean, Mike Evans disappears a lot too, but if you look at skill wise, he's up there.
Yeah,
it was a tough list to put together. I thought about every single guy that we all mentioned, so I don't think there was really like that much of a discrepancy between it. But all those guys came to my mind.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good receivers. So Matthew, while we're on the topic of wide receivers, who do you think? Which team has the best wide receiver group in the league?
This was tough.
There were a couple. I was between 4, really. I mean,
there's really not one that separates for me. There's like 4 teams that came to mind for me.
I'm gonna have to go with I'm gonna have to go with the Steelers. I mean, there's way too many there's just way too many weapons.
Yeah.
There's way too many weapons.
I'm interested in this because when I was thinking of this, Steelers didn't come up for me.
Well, I'm also looking at this as, even when you look at it historically, they have historically one of the best receiving cores in the league every year. They just draft receivers. So when you look at Antonio Brown and you look at Juju Smith-Schuster, and you that receiving core, you've got Juju, who's going to probably blow up into a top receiver this year. You got 2 top receivers. Then you got Le'Veon, who I kind of include in that a little bit because he's that receiving offense, and they always get their tight ends going. So I just, that team, that offense, when they're clicking, you can't cover those receivers.
So the Steelers didn't come into my mind for a couple reasons. One, they lose Martavis Bryant, who is a big play guy for them, because they had personality issues with him. I don't know how Juju is going to fit out in the slot because James Washington's probably going to slide out or slide into the slot. So I don't know how Juju's going to fit outside. And then they don't have Todd Haley there anymore, so that's kind of going to change their offense and the way that it rolls. So,
but they've done even before he got there. It's just they find a way to have their receivers playing at just another level. There's a reason they keep getting rid of these receivers.
All right, Evan. So you got best wide receiver core.
I'm flip-flopping, dude.
Oh, by the way, that was a last-second pick. I'd still.
Yeah, we're gonna make a last-second pick here.
These other 3. The fact that I had to go first.
I'm gonna go with a team that I'm pretty high on, and I mentioned one of these receivers. I'm gonna go with the Saints.
I was gonna go with the Saints too.
You got a guy like Michael Thomas, who I couldn't put in my top 5 just because I haven't seen enough yet, right? You add Cameron Meredith. I mean, you lose Willie Snead, who wasn't really much of a loss in my opinion. You got a guy like Ted Ginn Jr., not to mention, a guy like Benjamin Watson. They're just, they have. If you want to consider
Kamara into that.
Yeah, if you want to consider Kamara into the receiving threat, I mean that offense itself. I mean, they're our number 1 offense. Then we all agreed on that last week. But when it came down to this decision, there was so many teams that came to mind. I mean, you think about a Vikings with Diggs and Thielen, but the receiver drop off there is kind of big. I mean, you do got Kyle Rudolph. A team like the Lions even came to mind with Golden Tate, Marvin Jones. But Galladay, I don't really know what he's going to be, so I couldn't really name him. There's a bunch of teams that came to mind. I was with Josh. Steelers I didn't really put Steelers into much thought, but they definitely have some weapons.
Yeah, I was originally thinking Saints because Michael Thomas, Cameron Meredith, Ted Ginn Jr. Ted Ginn's that guy that can blow the top off. Michael Thomas is just a sure-handed guy, can go up and get the ball. Kamara can slot in and play receiver as well with his skill set. When I was thinking about the Saints, though, Willie Snead was like their slot guy, like their short yardage, convert, third down slot guy. And Cameron Meredith has been a outside receiver his entire career. Michael Thomas, same way. Ted Ginn, same way. Like, they've been outside guys. So I don't know which one they're going to throw into the slot in those 3 wide receiver formations. For my best wide receiver core, and we can talk about some of the other teams we had up there, too, after we get done with this. The team that I'm going to go with, the Los Angeles Rams. So you get Brandon Cooks from the New England. Robert Woods had a breakout year last year, and Cooper Kupp, I believe, was one of the best third down receivers in the league last year. So if you can,
Tyler Higbee's interesting too.
If you can sit in 2 wide receiver sets and run the ball with Todd Gurley to get to third and short, and then throw Cooper Kupp on the field and convert your third down, and then start your offense over again, and send Cooks deep. Send Robert Woods can even go deep, and he runs deep routes well. It's a really dynamic wide receiver core in LA.
Another team that I thought about, but we just haven't seen it from them yet. Health issues, other things. The Chargers got some talented names on their depth chart there on my wide receiver. Obviously Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, obviously, Travis Benjamin. I mean, Hunter Henry's out for the year, but then they still got a guy like Tyrell Williams. So they got some guys over there. I think they added a speedy J.J. Nelson. Who knows what he'll bring to the table, but you definitely some speed there. So they're a team that came to mind too.
Oh, and you look at it when he's doing something, you've got a dangerous group down in Atlanta too, because adding Ridley.
Yep.
And then you still got Sanu for another year, I think.
And Julio.
Yeah, so I think that's a very powerful group down there too. That NFC South has some receivers.
Yeah, the Buccaneers got some receivers too.
Mm-hmm.
Another team I thought of that I was going to throw into the mix was the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Chris Conley. Chris Conley's a nasty slot guy. He's tall. He's got huge vertical. He's such a mismatch for corners and wide receivers. So he's
Travis Kelce still.
Yeah, Travis Kelce is the tight end. So this one, we'll move on to the last NFL topic, and I feel like this is going to be a really good one, hopefully, unless we all go the same way. Drew Brees is slated to pass Peyton Manning in passing yards this year, as long as he doesn't get injured early in the season. I think he's only like 1,400-ish yards away from doing that. So let's talk about Drew Brees versus Peyton Manning. Which one's better? Which one would you rather have? That kind of argument. So, where would you start off with this, Matthew?
I think if I'm talking regular season, I want Peyton Manning. If you look at Drew Brees' start, when he was in San Diego, a lot of people forget that he wasn't blowing it off the top. He didn't blow it off the top in San Diego. As a matter of fact, he was supposed to go to Miami. It wasn't a slam dunk. He got in the right system. So that kind of scares me a little bit. What if he didn't get Sean Payton? What if he went to Miami and he didn't get Sean Payton?
Well, see,
before we continue with this, did you guys both pick your or did just Matthew?
No, we haven't picked yet. Matthew hasn't even given a name, so we're still at the beginning.
I said in the regular season I'd take Manning. That's what I said. Because I just think that what scares me is that he's only done it with the Saints.
Right.
It kind of scares me that he didn't do anything really much with the San Diego Chargers. As a matter of fact, kind of was supposed to go to Miami. Whereas Peyton, both places that he went, he just went off. So I take Manning. I just think, just in general, Manning is a better passer. I think that the situational things led to him getting more yards at the end of the day.
So Emmons said he was up in the air about this, and he would take a side after the initial arguments. I am taking Drew Brees. Now, when I originally posed this topic, and I was looking at it, and I was like, "There's no way I'm taking Drew Brees over Peyton Manning, right? Like zero way." And then I started going through like the awards that they received, and their playoff records, and their regular season numbers, and all this stuff. And I'm like going back and forth. I'm like, "Oh, it's Brees." And then I see another stat, and I'm like, okay, it's Manning." And then I see another stat, and it's Brees. I'm gonna end up with Drew Brees. And one thing I have an issue that you said about Drew Brees. When he was 25 years old in 2004, he made a Pro Bowl with the Chargers. He threw 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
I understand that, but he didn't go off. He didn't become if he would have continued that, he wouldn't have broken the record. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure, but and I get I get that, but
there were still questions about him as a quarterback. That's why they didn't re-sign it, and that's why he was kind of flip-flop. Now, in the playoffs, I take Brees. I agree with you. I take Brees. That's why I said regular season Manning. I take Brees in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll still take Brees in the regular season, because I guess we're comparing careers and not just like his first couple years in New Orleans.
Right.
Manning has better like award numbers. Manning's a 5-time MVP, whereas Brees is only a 1-time MVP. Do I have that right? No, Brees actually hasn't won an MVP award.
Yeah, I don't think
Brees hasn't won an MVP award. So Manning has 5. Brees doesn't have any. But they both went to 10+ Pro Bowls. Brees was at 11. Manning was at 14. Yeah, and
how many years did Peyton play, and how many years is Drew Brees in right now? If you can,
Peyton played 17 seasons. Drew Brees finished his 17th season, but his first season he only played 1 game.
Right.
So it's only 16 full seasons plus 1 game.
This is something I wish I could have really. I wish I would have dove into this first when I was doing my topic research for today, because I didn't get into it at all. I'm with Josh here, and I tried looking for things to not choose Drew Brees because it is Peyton Manning, right? And Drew Brees is kind of just like, everybody knows who Drew Brees is, but Peyton Manning's Peyton Manning. You talk about Peyton Manning, you talk about Tom Brady. Just watching Drew Brees, I don't know, man. There's something about Drew Brees. Go ahead.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Your team.
Before you go, Matthew, I will say what made this hard was I was looking at this question as just a Brees versus Manning thing, and I didn't break it down to regular season versus postseason. I was looking at both of them combined. Right. So that did make it a little tougher.
Well, I think overall I'll probably take Manning anyway. Okay. Even with the playoffs, I've always been a critic of his with the playoffs, but still. So you're telling me, John, your team is getting the ball back with 1.5 minutes to go. You're going to take Drew over Peyton?
I mean, yeah, I would take Drew over Peyton.
Let's say they have the same exact.
I'm actually taking Stafford over both of them, but
you have the same exact receiving core for either team. You got Brees and you got Manning on the sidelines.
If you give me either of the receiving cores they've had, yeah, I'm still taking Brees.
No, I'm saying they're on the same team.
No, I know, but I'm saying if you look, the same receivers.
Drew, get in there.
They've both played with a couple Hall of Fame receivers. So I mean, yes, I'm still taking Drew Brees.
Saying you're going to look at Drew and say, "Hey, get in there." Yeah. You're going to tell Peyton.
No. Drew Brees impresses me more than Peyton Manning.
No.
Didn't Drew Brees just engineer a 17-0
right?
I'm talking about from
against the Minnesota Vikings defense.
From a pure passing standpoint, I'm taking Manning.
Not the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm taking Brees, dude. I'm taking Brees. Look, here was like my major thing that sold me on Brees. Okay, so granted, Peyton does have 2 rings and Brees only has 1. Granted that fact. Do you guys know who Drew Brees beat in 2009 when he won a Super Bowl championship?
Yeah, Indianapolis.
Yeah, he beat Peyton Manning's Colts.
And you know who actually made that game-winning touchdown?
Who?
Defensive back.
Okay, that's where I'm going with my next topic. Yeah. With my point. That postseason, Drew Brees had a 70.6% completion percentage. He threw 8 touchdowns, had no interceptions the entire postseason. He played 3 games. Peyton Manning, in his combined 2 Super Bowl runs, 4 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
And here's the thing, too. You want to say Peyton Manning's better in the regular season? Fine, I'm not going to argue that. But it's not by that big of a difference to where, in my opinion, Drew Brees' playoff numbers compared to Peyton Manning, you combine the two, you take Drew Brees because his regular season numbers aren't – I mean, they're not far off. And the way he plays in the regular season is not far off from Peyton Manning.
And this might infuriate Isaiah a little bit since he's watching. Peyton Manning should not have won the 2006 Super Bowl MVP when he did. His numbers, 25 for 38, 247 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and a fumble lost. Whereas Dominic Rhodes, his running back, had 113 yards, a touchdown, no turnovers. Their defense forced 5 turnovers to win that Super Bowl.
When you look at the coaches around Peyton Manning, they have not been this offensive forward-pushing coaches.
Peyton Manning had
No.
Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne.
No, let me finish. I said I'm talking about the coaching philosophy. Like, when you look at Drew Brees and the Saints, they have just go air it out, whatever. I mean, they literally just go air it out. I think if you have, as a Patriot fan, this kills me to even argue Peyton Manning being better than somebody, and that tells you just how much I believe in this. If I am the Patriots, as a Patriot fan, there is nothing that was more terrifying than facing a Peyton Manning offense, and that includes Brees. When we would play the Saints, I didn't have that same feeling like, oh God, we're not going to be able to stop him.
Yeah, I think if you had the Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne factor in too, you can't just say that without mentioning those two names.
So
no, I know that they're there. I'm just saying that Manning, I was petrified of him.
Also, Brees hasn't had a semblance of a run game until this past year. Manning had Edgerrin James in his prime, and Edgerrin James was a great running back while he was in Indianapolis.
I understand, and that's why I'm saying some of these numbers that Brees got, he just was airing it out, whereas Peyton at least was giving some carries
still
away
though
different.
the way when Brees really started coming out though, the NFL has changed in a way you can't really knock that against Brees.
I'm not knocking him, but I'm not knocking him though.
But see, I feel like that right in itself is an argument towards Brees.
That he's throws it more.
You're saying he's airing it out more, but his numbers are still amazing. Like Brees,
his completion percentage is out of the.
Brees has a 66.9 completion percentage compared to a 65.3 for Manning, so they're not far off. I'm not going to say that either of them are not great quarterbacks. They're both excellent quarterbacks, but I'm taking Brees.
But like you said, he's forced to air it out.
Touchdowns. Manning had 50 more touchdowns. In the same, he had 50 more touchdowns.
Yeah, but Brees is still playing.
I understand, but that's what I'm saying. He's going to have more. That's what I'm saying. Circumstantial wise,
he also has 23 more interceptions.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, that's not going to break me. I don't care about interceptions.
So, but my thing is like, after this year, it'll be when I think we can accurately kind of assess it, because then Brees will have 17 full seasons, the same number as Manning, is when I think we can really kind of dive into it. But I think, me personally, I'm taking Brees if I'm going to debate the two.
I think you're crazy.
That's okay.
And that makes me sick to argue for Peyton. I want to go take it.
That's all right.
Terrible.
All right, so let's move on to Hold Up. So I got some good topics for you guys today. So we'll just start with the first one. So LeBron James Jr. was spotted dunking recently. That's not actually the Hold Up statement. Emmons told me that you tried to call that. I don't actually have LeBron James Jr. as a Hold Up statement this week. But I figured I'd try to troll you a little bit.
Terrible.
So here's your.
You wanted to though. Wanted to.
No, I didn't even see the article. He brought it up right before. I didn't even know it. So here's your real first statement. 5 quarterbacks were taken in the first round of the NFL draft. None are projected to start week 1 as it sits right now before we head into training camp. Since the Associated Press, who is the NFL's who the NFL recognizes as giving out their awards, started giving the award in 1967. Only 9 quarterbacks have won Rookie of the Year. Here's your statement. One of the 5 first-round quarterbacks will win Rookie of the Year.
Hold up. I'm going to say I think Saquon's getting it. I think he's going to end up being the guy who ends up taking it home. I think they're going to really try to get that run game going.
That's a safe bet. I'm not going to argue that because I think it's a safe bet. Just because I figure you guys might be curious. Your nine quarterbacks to win Rookie of the Year. Dennis Shaw, Dan Marino, Ben Roethlisberger, Vince Young, Matt Ryan, Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, Robert Griffin III, and Dak Prescott.
Basically recent.
Most of those are recent. Yeah. So those are your 9 QBs since 1967 that have won Rookie of the Year.
Who they got in? Oh, Sam Bradford. That's right, Sam Bradford's in.
I'm little side bit here. I'm glad Connor liked my Matthew Stafford drop.
I have no idea what we're talking about, but
Comeback King. We're talking about Peyton Manning, Drew Brees.
All right, so we'll move on to number 2. At the 2017 NBA Awards, Bill Russell got on stage, and there were 5 other Hall of Famers on stage, and he looked over at him and told him he could kick their ass. Last night, at the 2018 NBA Awards, Bill Russell flipped Charles Barkley the bird on live TV. So here's your statement. Bill Russell will not be invited to the NBA Awards next year.
Hold up.
Yeah. He will not be. Yeah, hold on. He's gonna be there.
I had to think about
it too.
Yeah. Listen.
What a great question.
Our society is about outrageousness and entertainment, and he's providing entertainment. Okay.
Right. I mean,
they love that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We all loved the Alex Ovechkin outrageousness with the Stanley Cup and everything, and then you just see this old man who just seems to age 10 years every year, just doing these things. It's you always think about when people are getting older, senior citizens, they just start not to care, right? They just do all these things in public. He's getting there. He doesn't care. He said, anytime I see Charles Barkley, I gotta give him the bird. So he's loving his life. It's entertaining. It's fun to see. I mean, it's harmless almost. So he's definitely got to be there next year. I mean, people are talking about him. That's what the NBA loves when people talk about him. So I mean, he's got to be there.
Yeah. They need to get Kobe and Shaq in there.
It's gonna be a great gift too when it starts flowing around.
Shaq was there. Kobe.
No, I said Kobe and Shaq together.
So we'll move on to statement number 3. In approximately 3 to 5 years, Buster Olney, who is a huge baseball guy around ESPN, he predicts the designated hitter will make its way into the National League in the interest of protecting pitchers, basically player safety. The change, it's going to be met with mixed reviews from avid baseball fans and casual fans alike. So here's your statement. This is a bad move for the Major League Baseball, for the MLB.
I wouldn't actually agree with you. Or agree with the statement.
I'm going to agree with the statement. I disagree with the statement. I would say hold up. I don't think it's a bad move. If you watched Dellin Betances, and this is what brought this conversation up, was Dellin Betances hit in the 8th inning for the Yankees when they were playing against... Oh, God. I don't remember who they were playing last night, but whatever. He looked awful. He could have borderline injured himself swinging at the pitches. And I believe it was Yu Darvish who just made a rehab start for the Cubs. He was running to second base, pulled both his hamstrings on the exact same play. They don't get paid money to hit the ball and run bases. That's not why they get paid millions of dollars. I get that it's part of the game, but in the interest of professional athlete player safety, I do agree that it should be gone. I do agree that there should be a DH in both leagues, and it will help increase offense, which should help increase casual fan interest.
So can I ask a question? And this is more of just my own ignorance of the stat. Do NL pitchers have their same kind of injuries as often, or is it just one of those things where since the AL pitchers don't typically do it, they just don't train, and so then running and things like that.
That was what my
that's why
wondering
that
thing was too.
happens?
I
Is
don't.
that-
I don't. I
Because
don't.
both guys you mentioned were both AL pitchers. That's what came to my mind
Well,
too.
Yu Darvish pitches for the Cubs now, so he's not an.
Oh,
AL
I
pitcher
forgot about
anymore,
that.
Oh, okay.
Forgot about that.
But yeah, no, I don't.
Well, I mean, he
I
spent a
don't-
lot of years not training those.
Right. Well, see, I don't know the numbers on it, but even still, NL pitchers don't hit in batting cages. The only ones that you can find in a batting cage would maybe be like Madison Bumgarner, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer.
No, I'm
Like,
talking about the running aspect.
Very rare cases.
No, I'm talking about the running aspect, because I'm sure they know pitchers get a little bit of running it just so they can, not sliding and everything, but
Yeah,
at
well,
least
I don't
they
know.
don't pull their
I don't know the injury.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with like the swinging so bad you might hurt yourself thing because they don't train to hit, but running around the bases and pulling both your hammies, that's just you not training right for the game. I mean, that's unexcusable.
I don't know the injury statistics, but pitchers are basically free outs minus a few rare pitchers around the league.
No, I do agree with that. I just for
Now,
an
it
entertaining
does-
aspect, it is fun going out there and seeing a pitcher try to hit a baseball.
It does
Makes me think of myself out there.
It does set up an interesting strategy thing, where like, do you
late
pinch hit?
games.
Do you pinch hit for this guy right now?
right.
You just put a pitcher in. Like it does create some strategy things, but overall, I don't mind seeing it go away personally.
I mean, I'm not
really like so like hard against like we need to keep this, but I don't.
Okay, so I'll rephrase it to meet the question. I don't think it's a bad move for Major League Baseball. So we'll move on. Number 4. Bryce Harper has said that he will only participate
I've seen this.
in the home run derby if he makes the All-Star team. So we've talked about Harper a little bit over the last couple of weeks. He's still batting .219 on the year.
Yeah.
So here's your statement. You'd be okay with Harper making the All-Star team to see him participate in the home run derby.
Hold
Hold
up.
up. What a loser.
We can go with that. I will agree with that. I mean, you're really that worried about being an all-star, like going to the home run derby, that you have to be an all-star? It's like, come on, dude, check your ego a little bit. 219 and you want to be an all-star. I mean, at this point, it's like, what really matters to you, right? There's so many other guys who can hit for power numbers in this league and don't hit for average. The rarity of Bryce is he was doing both. But this year, he's almost, I mean, it's either home run or bust, I mean, according to the average. If he makes an all-star game at batting .219, I'll actually be pretty upset.
Right now, Harper.
I'm sure he will, just because of votes and everything.
Harper is the third leading vote getter in the outfield in the NL. So
God, I love how people vote. Just like when they voted Zaza Pachulia a starter in the NBA All-Star game.
He is slated to start the All-Star game.
Listen,
ridiculous.
If
He doesn't
want to
deserve
get
it.
in the All-Star game that bad, okay?
Earn it.
How about you just start going out and hitting the darn ball?
The darn ball, I love it.
Just saying, just go do your job. Go do your
Great.
job. If I want
Go out there and
I'm
do
gonna go
what
do
you
my
want.
job.
Go out there and do what you want. Your $800 bajillion million for your next contract. Go out there and do what you're supposed to do. Be Bryce Harper. You got your other guy over there. You talk about Mike Trout. And you talk about Bryce Harper. Look what Mike Trout's doing this year. You don't hear a peep out of him.
Coming into this year, it was actually going to be a debate. Who's actually been better at this point.
And
Bryce Harper,
Mike Trout has just went way up here, and Bryce. You go out there and do what you do what you're supposed to do before you open your mouth about making an All-Star game.
He's taking his spot even.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I don't know. Move us on to
Bryce
our
Harper.
5th and final statement. I do think Bryce Harper should not make the All-Star team as it sits right now. He still has 3 weeks to improve his stock. Like, if he goes on a tear and hits 375,
if he starts yeah, sure. But I mean, his comments lately and the way he's carried himself has kind of almost made me lose a little respect for him as a player.
Yeah. Now, if he goes out and hits 375 over the next 3 weeks and bumps his average up to like 260, being in the top 10 in home runs, I could see him making the All-Star team.
Yeah.
But not as it sits right now. So, speaking of the All-Star break, we're 3 weeks away from the All-Star break. Every person in America can vote up to 35 times for who you think deserves to start on the All-Star team. All the reserves are picked by coaches, I think, and the pitchers are picked by coaches as well. So here's your statement. I'm the only person on this show who has submitted more than 5 votes.
Hold up. Nick Castellanos.
Oh, you've been voting?
I've been voting for my boy Nick. He doesn't really deserve to be a starter, but I've been voting for my boy Nick.
Okay. How many votes you've sent in, Evans?
Probably about 6 or 7, so just above the 5.
That's such a random number because it lets you submit 5 at a time. So you're telling me you submitted 5 votes, came back the next day, and then submitted 2 more, and then like called it a day.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've submitted like 20 votes, like 20 or 25 votes.
It was probably one of those things where I did it, and then I kind of started doing it again, and I was just kind of like, eh.
Okay, all right. At least Matthew was honest and didn't submit any votes. So we talked a lot about MLB in that last half of Hold Up. So let's talk about the MLB. So this question is going to sound a little weird coming off the top.
A little weird
coming off the top. But should the Red Sox and the Yankees be worried about the Rays, the Tampa Bay Rays, as a spoiler team?
Let me go first because Matthew's a fan of this division. I'll let him go on his little tangent here about this. No, Rays, it's just kind of like a familiar situation for me. The Rays are better than the Tigers, and they will be better than the Tigers in the future. But like we had so much hope here as Tigers fans in the horrible AL Central with how the Indians are struggling. We go out there, we play the Indians, and I think they outscored us like 27-3 in the series. So it's almost one of those points when you play the big boys, they're going to put you in check. I don't think the Rays are ready yet, but they are really young. And come next year, I'm going to be watching a lot of Tampa Bay Devils, paying attention to them at least, because they got a lot of young pieces, and they're going to be fun to watch over the next few years. Go ahead, Matthew. I'll let you go ahead and do what you do.
Over the course of a long season,
I'm ready for this debate between you two.
And let's all face it, as long as the NBA playoffs are, the MLB regular season is just god-awfully long. You're going to have many runs. Oh, whoop-de-doo, they beat the Yankees 3 games in a row.
Swept the Yankees.
Congratulations.
Take out the brooms.
One of the very few teams to hold them to shutouts back-to-back games.
Okay, congratulations.
Oh, I can see a debate coming. This is going to be good.
And then, look, they beat the Nationals 2 games in a row with Bryce Harper worried about the home run derby. Oh, congratulations. They're 7-3 of their past 10 games. The Yankees are 6-4. The Red Sox are 5-5. So even at their best, they're still not really catching much. They're not really catching much up. They're 13.5 games back from the Yankees and 13 back from the Red Sox. They're not going to catch that up. I'm not worried.
So Matthew took the question a little weird.
Barf.
He took it a little weird. I wasn't saying will the Rays be able to catch up and take a division spot or take a wild card spot. I was saying, are they going to play spoiler for one of those 2 teams?
No.
The Yankees are only half a game ahead of the Red Sox now. Why? Because they got swept by the Rays. They had a bigger lead on the Red Sox, and then they came to Tampa, and they got shut down, and now they're only half game up, and they just lost Gary Sanchez. The Rays are 5-8 against the Red Sox this year. You need to beat teams with worse records than you when you can, because if you don't, at the end of the year, when you're half a game under and you're playing in that wild card game, you're going to be like, man, I wish we would have won that game in May.
So that sounds great. I didn't take it a weird way. I'm really not, like I said, my entire statement was over the course of a long season, you're going to have little random flukes that happen, okay? Your logic is flawed because the Rays are going to have that point at some point of the year. As a matter of fact, the first weekend of the season, the Rays beat the Red Sox. There's going to be times throughout the season that the Rays are going to beat the Sox and make that battle. It's not going to be like, oh, they took the Yankees and brought them at level. There it is. It's going to be set. No, they're going to beat the Sox too at different parts of the season, and it's not going to be spoiler. They're always a pain in the rear end of the Yankees and the Sox. No offense, Josh. You're like a gnat. The Rays are just like a gnat. They're just like buzzing around a picnic. Okay.
So I feel about Michigan fans.
So I'm
right. And the Yankees or Sox are always just like get away, and every once in a while y'all bite us.
So let me.
We're just shoo.
Where I'm going with this is at the end of the year, if the Yankees are playing in a wild card game and they're lined up against Mike Trout and the Angels in a wild card game and they lose it, you know what they're gonna say? God, if we wouldn't have got swept in June by the Rays, we'd have been in first place. We'd been playing in a best of 7 in the division series.
But I'd like to pull this up historically and see. I guarantee you they win the same amount of kind of games every season against these 2 teams, and it's probably very similar. I don't think that's going to be the difference is what I'm saying.
Well, see, and what's going to be interesting to watch down the season is Blake Snell has come into his own. Nathan Eovaldi looked really good yesterday against the Nationals. The Rays and I will admit that I'm plugging my Rays a little bit because we talk
you are.
about Matthew's Red Sox and his Patriots. We've brought up the Pistons and the Lions.
We even talk about how bad the Tigers are from week to week here.
But the Rays have like a really bright future ahead of
The
them.
Rays are really exciting to think about.
And the fact that they're letting their young guys play, which is something a lot of major league teams don't do, is really, really fun to watch. Their attendance has even gone up, I will say. It's had a nice spike over the last couple weeks. But the Red Sox and Yankees, they don't need to be worried about the Rays edging them out for a division spot or a wild card spot in the next 2 to 3 years. But they need to be careful about playing them at a 500 level, because 2 to 3 wins can knock them out of where they want to be.
Yeah, but that's I just feel like that's every season with them. They get that against both teams. That's why I'm saying it's not going to be the difference, because it happens to both teams.
We'll see. So
Very entertaining, boys.
So let's move on.
We got swept the first week.
We beat you opening day, and then you beat us 3 straight games. So
yeah, I see it now. I see it now. I was looking at this one.
So let's move on. Emmons, who is
I'm gonna get a little talking here.
Who's the best manager in the league?
Oh, we're going manager.
Yeah, who's the best manager in the league?
Another thing I didn't really get to do too much research on, so I'm going to go with the more probably boring pick. I'm going to go with Joe Madden. I love Joe Madden, always have. When I think when he left or whenever he was up for the Cubs job, I wanted us to fire Brad Ausmus immediately and try to get him, but obviously we decided to keep Brad. But I think Joe Madden is for me. There's really not another guy who comes to mind, given I'm not as in tune to different baseball managers as I would be for other sports. So if you guys have a different manager, I mean, that's fine too. Just him, the way he not changed the game necessarily, but the weird things he started doing before everybody else did kind of just turned me on to Joe Madden.
What about you, Matthew? Who do you think best manager is?
I'm going to go with Mr. Hinch.
AJ Hinch.
He's got a win percentage of 62 last season with the Astros. Before him, the Astros were a joke. Don't get me started with Madden, with the Cubs and the Rays, whatever. I'm just not going to go with the same thing as John. But the Astros were literally a joke. I mean, you don't. He put something together, so I'm going to go with him.
The one thing I will say about them being a joke, those joke years also led to them having the talent that they do now, which is credit to their general manager in drafting.
Completely. I agree that the joke years led to this, but you've got to.
You could all say the same thing for the Cubs too. So I mean, it's
but I mean, like you look at a lot of these teams that have a lot of talent and then they don't do anything. I mean, look at the Dodgers when they had all that talent and just nothing.
Josh looks like he has something brewing in his mind right now, and I want to hear this.
I'm just going to comment on the AJ Hinch thing. I may be wrong here, but I believe the Astros started their entire rebuild because they couldn't get around the Braves and Bobby Cox. Like, they had Jeff Bagwell, Craig Biggio, Lance Berkman, and they struggled to get around the Braves and Bobby Cox. So they were like, you know what, blow it up until they're gone, and then we'll figure it out then.
I remember that, yeah.
I think that's what happened with that team. But best manager, I was going to go with Joe Madden.
Okay, so I wasn't that
ignorant. Yeah, I was going to go with Joe Madden. He's very unique in his style and everything.
That's what really turns me on to him.
But just to change the pace.
Ron Gardenhire.
My boy Kevin Cash down in Tampa. My boy Kevin Cash. So I just mentioned we're playing the young guys. Just like every other club won't do. Then he doesn't invent it, but he's the first to start the opener. Rays have the best ERA in baseball since they started doing the opener back in May, and that's not a refutable thing. Like, that's a fact. And then last night against the Nationals, they had Harper, Rendon, Daniel Murphy, and then another lefty at the plate, and I can't remember who it was. Kevin Cash goes, you know what? I only have one lefty in the bullpen. So what does he do? He switches his first baseman to play left field. Okay? Well, he brings in Jose Alvarado. Alvarado pitches to Bryce Harper. Alvarado then slides to first base First baseman slides to left field. We bring in a right-hander to throw to Rendon, the righty. He gets Rendon out. Alvarado goes back to the mound. Bauer goes back to first base. Malik Smith goes to left field. Now Alvarado pitches to the next two left-handed batters.
I like it.
No, and that's in a 1-0 game. That's a 1-0 game. That's not a 4-0 game. That's not an 8-4 game. Like, that's a 1-0 game in the 8th inning. And he's ballsy enough to do that kind of thing. Like, no other manager is doing anything remotely close to what Kevin Cash is doing.
I won't say he won't be in the future, but I mean, ballsy doesn't necessarily mean the best.
No, I agree. But after Longoria got traded, then we trade Alex Colomé, who was like a bona fide, like who was a top 5 closer in the league. Everybody kind of expected the Rays to just be a bottom feeder. I'm not really
disagreeing with you. 1. I'm just saying I pretty much got to see more from him than I do now. I'm not really saying there's no way he is, because he's doing some things that are working and almost not changing the game yet because no one's followed it yet. But he's doing a lot of interesting things, and he's playing these young kids, and he's getting everything out of the guys. They're definitely trying their hardest and playing ball. So I mean, I can't necessarily say no, but for me, I got to see more, I guess, is where I'm going at.
I'm okay with that, but like his innovation,
it's undeniable what he's trying to do.
His innovation is what Joe Madden did that actually put the Rays into playoff contention in the AL East all those years ago. Like, Madden came in, he was an innovator. He came up with new stuff. He started doing different things.
Before you go on this tangent, Matthew, I will warn you, we still got to do Players of the Month and What's on My Mind. So
I'm not going to go on a tangent. I'm just going to say
I didn't even realize we were already.
I'm going to ruin your little Rays stream right here.
Oh.
Now that I have some information on how you're going to argue this, the Rays are 4-9 against the Sox this year. 4-5 against the Yankees.
They're 5-8 against the Red Sox this year.
I just went through and I counted, but okay, 5-8. That makes my
point. Numbers.
So that makes the point even more. It's going to be balanced out. At the end of the day, listen, not impressed until he does it over the course of a couple years, like Matt.
Right, I got to see more from him, but he's opened my eyes to him.
I'm okay with that. I had to pick.
Now, if he continues the innovation and it keeps working and he wins
for sure
games. Yeah, you can start talking about it, because that's what makes Madden great. I mean, that's why I hated playing his Madden's Rays, because it was always like, what's he gonna do now? What the heck is he gonna do now in the 9th? You know, so.
All right, so let's blow through these players and pitchers of the month really quick. John, hit me with one.
It's pretty easy for me. Paul Goldschmidt as my player, and then Josh's boy Snell, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays pitcher.
He took my guy.
44 strikeouts. He's they're batting 157 against him. He's got a 1.47 ERA. Then the Goldschmidt thing, he's batting 380. I think the guy leading the last 30 days is 390. I forgot who that was, but Goldschmidt's got 11.
Derek Dietrich leading the last 30 days.
But Goldschmidt's got 11 home runs and 25 RBIs. That's what separated it for me. But Blake Snell's numbers he's a rookie, right? Like, he is a rookie. No? Okay. But what he's doing,
he's a young guy though.
44 Ks. 157 batting average against, and a 1.47 ERA in 30 days is damn impressive. Especially when you're playing a division with the Red Sox and the Yankees.
He actually took the Yankees no-hit into the 6th inning the other night.
Just made my point even better.
Go ahead, Matthew. Who you got? Player and pitcher.
I'm going to say Altuve. He's been hot the past couple of days.
Altuve?
Yeah, he's been pretty hot.
Altuve.
I'm going to say Verlander.
My baby.
Yeah, he's balling.
What are his stats over the last 30 days?
Over the last 30 days? I don't know the 30 days. I have the 7 days.
That's a week. We're doing
Player of the month, not week.
I know.
He had one appearance. He had one appearance in there.
Yeah.
All right. So my player of the month is going to be a guy who should be the 3rd leading vote getter instead of Aaron Judge for the AL.
Should be.
He should be the 3rd leading vote getter for AL outfield. And that is not Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge currently is 3rd behind Mike Trout and Mookie Betts. Eddie Rosario needs to be 3rd place over Aaron Judge. If you go look at Eddie Rosario's numbers, they're crazy good. They're better than Judge for sure. In the last 30 days alone, he's hitting .368 with a 1.107 OPS and 8 home runs. For my pitcher of the month, I was also going to go with Blake Snell because I
Just
didn't think
do
either
it,
of you guys
dude.
were going to. I will say that Blake Snell has a lower ERA than Max Scherzer, same exact batting average against. I'm going to go with Jacob deGrom. His numbers are a little bit misleading because he's 1-3 in 6 starts over his last 30 days. That's because his offense has been abysmal. He's got a 1.88 ERA, a 2.10 batting average against, 49 strikeouts, 1.02 WHIP. So he's been on a tear. If he would get any kind of run support from that Mets offense at all, he would probably be like 4-0, 5-0. So who's your pick? Go ahead.
Wait, what about John Lester?
I did have John Lester up there as well. I was thinking John Lester as well. Yeah, he's having it really good because I think he had 5 starts and he was 5-0. Yeah.
1.64 ERA.
Yeah, but see, Blake Snell was going to be my guy above all of them because he's been pitching excellent.
So you're asking me who's my pick, and I can't pick my own, right?
Yeah, you can't pick your own.
I'll go with Rosario and Verlander.
Who are you picking, Matthew? Can't pick your own.
Nazario and Snell.
Yes.
Ooh, and I can't pick my own. I'd go Goldschmidt and Snell because Goldschmidt was who I had number 1. So Eddie Rosario is our player of the month.
Snell was kind of clear for me, in my opinion. I
Yeah,
thought there was
see,
like,
it
like
was,
that's why I was surprised that you like. I know he's like he's on the Rays and he's not talked about much, but that's why I'm kind of. I mean, looking at the numbers, I mean, there was really no question. I didn't even have to look at anybody else.
I said,
listen, it was the Rays show today.
I said
He deserves it. He treats us enough with our own team. He deserved his little raise.
I said 3 weeks ago that Blake Snell was now our ace over Chris Archer.
You've been talking about Blake Snell a lot, so I will give you credit.
I
with
love
that.
Blake Snell. I love Blake Snell. He's great. All right, Emmons, take us out. What's on your mind, buddy?
So I debated 2 things, but this has been on my mind for the last couple of weeks, ever since the whole LeBron James, like, where's he going to go era started. And my point to this is, at what point do we start looking at the media as crossing a line and a boundary? You have the media calling schools to find out if LeBron James's child is going there. Like, at what point? I mean, I get they're celebrities, and I get they have to be open to the public eye, but getting a kid involved, I mean, it's his family. Yes, I'm sure they don't mind the attention. It's just the principle, though. Like, the media's job is to report facts and report this, not to go around almost like on a witch hunt for where LeBron James Jr. is going to go to school.
But it is.
But that's my thing, though. It shouldn't be. We should not be involving LeBron James Jr. and what LeBron James is going to do with his career decision.
Okay, I'll give you a prime example.
Calling a school is over the line. I don't care about examples, but
they're calling schools. Like, I didn't.
They called schools in L.A. about, oh, hey, is LeBron? You should not. That crosses the line. I don't care what's happened in the past, and it's happened in other cases. You should not be calling a guy's kid's school or a potential school to see if his child's going there. His child has nothing to do with the media. I don't care what you say. His kid has nothing to do with the NBA media.
Well, here's what it is, though. We as a society has made it the media's job to do that.
I know where you're going with. I'm just saying it's crossing a line and it's got to stop.
But not necessarily, because here's
he's like what, 13?
Let me.
Yeah, let him get his point out. So, let him get his point.
There was a point when I was reporting on Gator Sports, and Billy Donovan was going to the Magic. Y'all remember that?
Nope.
Remember when? Okay. So Billy Donovan got hired by the Orlando Magic when he was the Gator coach. Okay, and then he a couple of days later reneged on it. You don't remember that?
I do.
Okay.
I won't.
So I was told I need to get to the door because they were having a players and a coaches meeting at his house. I was given his address. And this was at the age where it changed, John, because there was a time that this changed.
No, I know how it is now. I know how it is. I have 3 friends that are in sports media right now, and they're reported for newspapers. I know how it is.
The thing is, though, they're not talking to the kid, though. They are calling.
You should not be calling a school.
Why not? Why not?
Why are we in? What is LeBron James Jr.? His privacy should be of utmost of respect, just out of respect and if I'm a kid, yeah, it's cool to be in the spotlight, but hey, can I go to school in peace, please? Can I do things where I'm not in the spotlight? Yes,
But if
they're in the
calling
spotlight.
school, now, if they're standing outside the door trying to ask
There
him
was
questions-
people going
but
to the
that's not what you
schools.
said. But that's not what you said. No, I
But
was
you
saying-
also started interrupting me, so I went on my tangent. You started talking about what the media is when we all know what the media
I'm
is.
saying if they're just calling the schools, it's fine. Now, if they're standing
There's
out
been
there
reporters
trying
showing
talk
up to
LeBron-
schools.
Okay, that's fine. If they're standing out there trying to talk to Bronny, as they call him, that's a different story to me. But if they're calling
You
the school,
want
and
to
they're talking to the
go where
administration,
LeBron
it's fine.
James where his kids going to school? Ask
Mm-hmm.
LeBron James, and you know what? He's not going to tell you. You know why? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
his family, and it's his right to have his privacy.
All right.
You lose a little bit of that when you're a celebrity.
That's gonna be all for our show today. So we'll be back next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. You can follow us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. All the links to everything will be there.
We're on
as
about
well-
7 things
as
by
well
now,
as
so
here.
hopefully you're
Yeah.
subscribing to them all.
Yeah, we're on iTunes as well. You can download the audio on iTunes. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. Everybody have a good night.